guide will introduce the basics of Google Sheets. Google Sheets is a spreadsheet tool that helps you manage classroom data, analyze trends, and stay organized. Let's first look at accessing Google Sheets. To access this application, you can either use your Google app waffle and select Google Sheets, or you can go to sheets.google.com. From here, you can either select a blank spreadsheet, choose a template, or you can select any of the current Google Sheets that you have available. For the purposes of today, we're going to look at a blank spreadsheet. Like with most Google applications, up in the top left-hand corner, you can name your spreadsheet based on what data you're going to be putting into it. For today, we're going to create a gradebook. Entering data is simple. Each box is called a cell. It's labeled by columns and rows like A1 or B1. You'll use the rows for individual entries and columns for categories. A quick tip, if you want to freeze your headers, you'll simply select the space that you're wanting to freeze, go to View, Freeze, and then you can select the number of rows or columns that you're wanting to freeze for this section. The great thing about freezing your header is whenever you put in your column types or your column headers, this information will stay with you as you scroll throughout your document, so you can make sure you know which header this data goes with. Now let's look at some formulas to help you crunch your numbers for your class. As you can see here, I've created a gradebook for my class. Now let's look at some formulas to help you crunch the numbers for your class. Let's say I want to know the total points that each of my students have received for overall their assignments. For this type of formula, I will use the sum formula. To use this, in that cell, I will select the equal sign, and I will select sum. And you can see here, it's already kind of started populating some information. I can then go in and select the specific cells that I want it to calculate, and then make sure that at the end of your formula you do a close parentheses so that it knows that that is the only information that you're going to be calculating for this particular cell. When you're done, you'll simply hit enter, and it now has calculated my points. With Google Sheets, it will sometimes offer suggestions where this one will autofill the same formula into my other cells. You do not have to select this if you're wanting to use a different formula for each of your students, but for this purposes, I will use the autofill. The next category we're going to look at is how to calculate the average for our students. You'll again select your cell. To do average, you'll do your equal sign and then type average. And again, it's already starting to populate the areas, but for this, I'm just wanting to look at creating a regular average and then selecting the actual assignments, close parentheses, and hit enter. Now you'll see it again creates that autofill. You don't have to use that, but for this purposes, I will go ahead and apply it to all of my students. Now I can see an average of all of my students' grades to kind of calculate where they're going to be in standing with my class. Another formula for average that may prove beneficial for your class is average weighted. This works if each of your assignments needs to be weighted differently than your others. So let's say, for example, at your campus, general assignments, daily assignments are weighted at 25%, but quizzes are weighted at 50%, and then overarching projects are weighted at another 25%. You can utilize this by using this formula. You'll go equals average dot weighted, and then for each of your assignments, you'll select that particular cell, comma, and you'll assign the weight to that assignment. So let's say for my daily assignments, I have a weight of 25%. You'll then select another comma, and you can add each of your individual assignments. So my quizzes are 50%. My project is worth 25%, and so on. Again, at the end of each of your formulas, make sure you do a close parentheses and select enter. I now have the average of all of my assignments for each particular student. This will allow me to know where my students are currently standing in class and adjust my tutoring accordingly. If I have a student that is really doing bad within that 6 weeks, I know I need to pull them in for remediation to help them do makeups, reteach, anything like that. One more formula that I want to go over is the count formula. This formula allows us to count how many entries we have put into a particular column. If I'm wanting to count the number of students I have in this class, I will go down to a cell, click equal, and add count. With this function, it only counts if we've added in a numerical value. So I've got my student IDs here. I can simply highlight that area with my student IDs, add in my close parentheses, and hit enter. Now I know that I have 10 students in this classroom. This is great if you're putting all of your students in one document, but you want to know how many students you have in each individual class. You can just highlight the particular students for that period and calculate those there. Now let's say I want to be able to visualize my data. See exactly how well my students are doing based off of graphing, charts, anything like that. So you'll take your information that you're wanting to have visualized. So let's say I want to see how my averages are looking in a pie graph. I will simply select those numbers, go to Insert and Chart. It will auto-populate it to a bar graph, but if you look over here in the right-hand side, you can choose what type of graph you want to use. So let's say for this purposes, I want to do a pie graph similar to this. I'll simply select it and it will change here. If after I've created a pie graph, if I don't like how that is showing the data, I can simply go back over to chart type and I can choose a different chart. Go back to the column, can do this bar, I can do it as a line graph. This type of application is great for when you're looking at data to track how your students have been doing overall throughout the class. Now I want us to look at formatting your individual Google Sheet. First thing I want to start with is how to bold text. This is very similar to other Google applications. You'll simply highlight whatever text you're wanting to bold, and you can select that here. You can unbold it or make it a little bit more seeable. You can also change the size of the text so that it stands out more, and you can change this text font as well. You can also use alternating colors so that your lines stand out from each other. To do this, you'll highlight your area, format, and then select alternating colors. It will populate this information as a gray header, but you can also just change your overall color scheme to fit your needs or what colors just stand out best for you. You can also make your rows stand out by adding borders to the area. To do this, again, highlight the section that you're working in. Go up to your toolbar to this little square. When you hover over it, it will say borders. And you can add borders to each individual cell and row, or you can just do the inner borders. You can do it just along the row lines or along the columns to make it stand out. So for example, if I want each of the individual rows to stand out, I would select horizontal borders. And now you can see that has created lines in between each of my students. I can also change the border style where I can make it bolder if I want this to stand out even more. And I can also change the colors as well. Another option for formatting is conditional formatting. This is useful for highlighting certain values that relate to a certain parameter, such as highlighting if their score is above or below a certain average that you're wanting to make sure you highlight. This is great for whenever you're doing data tracking and you're wanting to see like your meets, matches, and approaches. When we're talking about STAR data, you could do a conditional format that will take the student's score and color code it by your parameters. To access conditional formatting, you will go back up to your Format tab, select Conditional Formatting. You can change the color for your particular Google Sheet to do the conditional formatting. You can change how your formatting rules are if you want it to be is between, and then you can say a 70 and an 80 on your parameters. Then it will highlight those certain scores so you can see, okay, students in this color are in that range. Now let's look at some ways to stay organized in your Google Sheet. If you want to use this for, say, a grade book, but you want to have each of your individual classes in the same spreadsheet, you can use the tabs down at the bottom to create individual classes. You'll simply select that plus button, and it will auto name to sheet 1, 2, 3, but you can go to the little drop down here and you can duplicate so that you keep the same formatting from your other sheet, or you can change the color so that you'll have each individual class has a certain color to have an easy eye-catching organization. You can also rename your sheets to your particular class period so you know that this tab contains the students for period 3's data. Now I want us to look at an extension program for Google Sheets called Flippity. Flippity is a fun free tool that transforms your Google Sheets into interactive learning activities. To access Flippity, you will go to flippity.net. You can then select a template from the library below. You can choose flashcards, You can create a quiz show. You can select the random name picker. This is good for whenever you're wanting to do question and answer sessions in your class, but you want to do a randomized questioning to really see which kids know the information. You can put all of your students' names in here and do a random select. For the purposes of this training, we're going to look at how to make a flashcard. So when you're ready to start, you'll hit instructions on the Flippity flashcards. It's going to give you a list of instructions on how to create your Flippity. This is great in case you forget how to use it as you are creating, and it will have specialized instructions for each type of template you're making. So first we're going to start off with, we're going to modify a Google Sheets template. We're going to make a copy of the template. You'll see here that it's going to force us to make a copy of that document. You can edit the slide 1 and slide 2 text and enter as many terms as you want. You can also choose colors for the cards next to the information so that they stand out for your students. And you'll be able to name your flashcards by changing the name of the worksheet. It asks that you do not edit any cells with a blue background to maintain the template formatting. I'm going to split my screen so that you can see the instructions as we work. Okay, so this created a template just of generic information, but let's say I want to do a flashcard set for vocabulary related to my 7th grade Texas history unit. I want to do the vocabulary for the Great Depression and World War II unit of Texas history. I would utilize the TEKS resource system to obtain the vocabulary required for that unit, and I would simply copy and paste that information into my flashcards here. So as you can see, I've copied in my information. I've got the term here and the definition on the next slide. I can then go over to the card color like it's suggested in the instructions, and I could change them to specifically match certain elements that I want to do. Specifically within history, a lot of times we have to cover the political, social, and economic issues of a unit. You can change the card color to reflect that within your vocabulary so your students are already starting to see how these terms would reflect the issues of that time period. So for example, if we want to talk about boom and bust cycle, well, a lot of times that has to do with economics. I could change the card color to green to reflect like money, where the students are going to associate this term with that color that I've emphasized as related to economic issues. I can also change the text color to just show up more on that particular color card so that the students can easily read the text. Once I've got all of my vocabulary flashcards ready to go and I'm ready to move on to my next step, you'll then move into step 2, which is publish your spreadsheet. You're going to select File, Share, and you're going to select Publish to Web. Once you're here, you will select Publish, select OK to publish this selection, and you're going to take this URL that you were given and you're going to copy that for your next step. When you're done, you'll select X and you'll go to step 3 by selecting the Get the Link Here tab. Once you've published your spreadsheet, you're then going to copy the link that you were provided into this cell, the green one. It's going to populate again down here in cell 3. This is a generated Flippity flashcard set that you can utilize moving forward. So you'll select this link, and now you'll see your cards have been created. You can shuffle them. You can flip the stack to slide 2 so you can see the back of that term. You can reload the cards, and also you can delete cards if you realize that you did not want that particular vocabulary in this unit. One thing that it does suggest as you finish your Flippity is to bookmark that activity to find again quickly. And you can also share the Flippity link with anybody that you want to use it. This would be great to load into your Google Classroom so that students can access it throughout their unit. Now, how can Google Sheets help you in the classroom? For teachers, it's great to be used as a gradebook or progress tracking. It's also great for attendance logs, participation and behavior monitoring, and also for analyzing formative assessment data. For students, it's great for graphing data in science and math classes, for tracking reading goals, analyzing survey results, and creating study tools using Flippity. If you have any questions or you need help, you can use the Sheets help menu in the app, or you can visit support.google.com/sheets for tutorials and guides. If you have any questions, of course, you can please reach out to our curriculum team and we'd be more than happy to help you. Thank you.